Hey guys, welcome to our session. I'm Emma, who is the CEO and founding partner of Longhash Ventures. I'm your moderator today. And with me, we have Lukas, who is the CEO, co-founder of Safe. Hi, Lukas.
Hey Emma, and hey everyone, great to be here.
Yeah, so over the next 30 minutes, we're going to do a deep dive into SAFE and hear some of the very, very exciting shifts or trends that's happening, catalyzing the growth of SAFE. Before that, I will do a quick self-intro. Longhash Ventures has been investing in the space for since 2017. And of course, we're a proud backer of SAFE. I have definitely witnessed the birth of SAFE and also the growth over the last couple of years. And particularly, I think over the bear market, you guys have gone through a kind of explosive growth, which will cover some of those catalysts. Maybe before we dive into the sessions, I will also kind of invite Lukas to give a quick introduction of himself.
Yeah, sure, thank you. I'm Lukas, co-founder of Safe. I've been working with the project since about 5 years now, where originally it was an in-house project within Gnosis. So that's like a organization that does prediction markets and a bunch of other R&D things, and also runs the Gnosis chain. And then 2 years ago, we did the spin-off from Gnosis, where Safe became its own project, and I took over the coordination and the planning of the future for the project.
Super, super exciting. And for those guys who are not so familiar with Safe Foundation Smart Accounts, do you mind giving us a quick intro about that?
Yeah. So yeah, maybe taking a step back, why does Safe exist?
Yes.
And it's really about ownership being a human right. Like it's actually part of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 17. It says that everyone should have the right to own property by himself or in association with others, and they should not be arbitrarily derived by that property. And it's important. Property here doesn't mean like a house or an apartment. Property means in general like ownership over assets, over intellectual property, any kind of thing people should be able to own. And in reality, this human right is often restricted because you have intermediaries or other people controlling assets for humans, for people, which is like a problem that we in the space obviously are quite aware of. And that's why we're building the Web3 ecosystem, because the solution to that is really to give control to the people themselves. So that's where self-custody comes into play, where suddenly it's not Facebook controlling your data, it's not a bank controlling your assets, it's actually the user who has full control through cryptographic signatures to do whatever they please with those assets. Now, there are some problems on the way to make self-custody feasible for anyone, and really to make it possible that 1 billion people are digital owners, so to say. And that's where Safe comes into play as we push forward a new type of user account that we call a smart account, which makes it much easier to own and control digital assets of any form, be it your digital identity or your digital currencies or data. And yeah, happy to go into the technical details of what this means in fact, but yeah, that's a rough overview.
I think you've touched on some of the core values on why is safe needed in this space, right? So some of the core values like true ownership, self-custodial are really the ethos that drives a lot of us into crypto in the first space. And I think it's important to perhaps kind of take a step back and talk through some of the kind of achievements, right? Or where you guys are today. So what are some of the key metrics you're tracking to signify the growth of Safe today?
Yeah. So maybe I need to go a little bit first into what actually smart accounts are, just
Yeah,
for understanding like how
yes, let's do that.
we see the adoption of it, which is
Yeah.
yeah, as I was saying on like self-custody, how we did it in the past or up to date for the most part is like giving people private keys, which is
Mm.
having people write down like a 12-word seed phrase and controlling their digital assets through a wallet. And this is limiting as in if the user loses their private key, they lose access to all their funds. Like there's no way to recover that. But also if someone else gets their private key, they can do with their assets whatever they please. And it's also to some extent not full ownership that people have, because part of ownership is also that I, as Lukas, can transfer my account to you as Emma. And that's not possible with private keys, because I cannot prove that I don't have access to that private key anymore. So I cannot give you access to my wallet without not having access to the wallet myself. So there's like a bunch of problems why like current way we do self-custody is not feasible, and smart accounts solve them by making user accounts as smart contracts. And smart contracts are programmable, as in you can like program any logic how the account is controlled, that you can that you can program in Solidity in a way. And that allows you to have accounts that are not controlled by a private key, but by multiple private keys. That's multisig. That allows you to have better security, for example. It also allows you to program an account that has a recovery system. So if you lose your private key, you have like a backup solution that you go to recover your account, like a bunch of things more. And so from Safe, we originally started with multisig as the main use case, where we saw this is like originally getting traction to this new type of user account. And we built something actually that we needed ourselves, because we are a team, we had like a treasury to manage, and we wanted to have this in the most secure way. And so we rolled out to we built a solution for ourselves and then open sourced it, and people started adopting it. Now, because we mainly, the original user base was mainly like the teams, then DAOs, and just generally like everywhere where a lot of assets were tracked. Obviously, the key metric, and now finding the way back to your question, like the key metric that we're tracking, at least originally, was like how much assets are on Safe smart accounts. And there we recently reached like $100 billion worth of assets secured, which is in a way as much assets as there is in DeFi on all chains together. So like it's a massive number. Obviously, it's apples to oranges. It's not a DeFi product. It's like a self-custodial product, but it shows a little bit the magnitude of where we are today with Safe. Now, I think now into the future, the focus will shift more in making sure that like this technology is actually accessible to anyone. So more going to how many people we can turn into smart account users, and we track more like number of smart accounts deployed, number of transactions, so more like the absolute numbers of activity with Safe. And there we are currently at almost 10 million accounts that are created. So we're also making some progress there. And yeah, just as an example, like where this traction is coming from, like WorldCoin is one of the biggest users of Safe today, as in they deploy like, I know, 6 million accounts so far, and every user of WorldCoin is a Safe user. And like this this from my opinion is like the future of Safe, to be more into like a number of lives touched in a way.
That's amazing. I think last time when I was talking to Christoph in Singapore during Token 2049, I think we were looking at 4 to 5 million accounts, right? So we have gone through an explosive growth phase in terms of number of accounts as well. And one point I think I would like to point out is, with this amount of accounts and also assets under on the platform, it's almost comparable to like a mid-sized regional bank, right? And the crazy things to most people outside of crypto, people don't really know. I think so. It's such an amazing thing that's really kind of catering to the crypto native crowd and growing up with the market.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I would even say,
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So go ahead.
You meant like a mid-sized regional bank, like. Someone once said like that if Safe would be a bank, or if you compare it to US banks, for example, like it would be the top 1% of banks just by the number of assets. Obviously, it's not a bank, so it's not a good comparison. Or it's more than Robinhood manages, for example, or almost as much as Coinbase, the centralized exchange, is managing. So that's roughly how to,
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And also kind of want to go back down the memory lane a little bit, right? Because I remember during the bear market when everybody was struggling 2022, 2023, you guys actually continue to grow. And I feel like some of the growth are driven by actually a lot of people realize self-custody is sorely needed, right? Because a lot of businesses went bankrupt during the downfall down run of the market, and hence custodian risk were kind of brought to the front and center. So can you kind of reflect on what happened just through that journey and how that kind of maybe some of the problems in the market that happened back then have driven the crowds more
Mm,
towards safe solution?
mm. Yeah. I mean, we're saying in this space for a long time, not your keys, not your crypto. But sometimes we tend to forget until there's like some moments which makes us remember in a hard way why this is the case. And that was specifically the case in 2021 and 2022, where we saw a lot of centralized players, exchanges, but also custodians and like brokers, no others like that had control over people's assets suddenly disappear overnight, which is like commonly known as a counterparty risk, which is uh, common in any business relationship, but it's quite critical if it touches like all your life savings or something. And yeah, especially FTX, what happened there is that people didn't expect FTX to be suddenly gone overnight. And this led a lot of people to rethink like what custody or self-custody means to them and how they should approach it. And we saw over the next weeks after FTX happened, like 8 billion or so assets moving from centralized solutions into safe. So that was clearly a wake-up call for many. And we had like Silvergate Bank and even Credit Suisse at some point. Like there were a lot of these kind of trigger points over like the last years that made people really rethink self-custody. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that there is a world where everyone will use a pure self-custodial solution. So we will also find some like kind of hybrid intermediate ways to do that. But it's definitely, it shows that there is a value in having like an exit strategy, so to say, with crypto being kind of the underlying infrastructure where it's possible to self-custody assets. It's good to be able to, when someone doesn't feel like they trust the counterparty anymore, that they have an exit door.
Yeah, I feel like the solution space for crypto has been kind of at the extreme of the spectrum. Either you go for a centralized platform where you trust them 100%, right? And people have learned multiple lessons, or you go for like self-custody and but then you're really subject yourself to a lot of the risk in terms of forgetting your secret, private key or things like that,
Mm,
right? So I feel like what you guys have built is trying to bridge the gap in the middle, right? So with the introduction of smart accounts capabilities, a lot of the UI UX are starting to kind of be bridged over more closer to the experience of centralized platform as well, right? So you kind of have the best of both worlds, so to speak. So
mm,
maybe we should touch on what are some of the future catalysts or some of the emerging things you guys feel could catalyze or have catalyzed the growth of smart contract wallets and safe solutions. I think one of the things you touched on briefly was the ERC 4337 smart account module, right? With the recent launch of Safe's ERC 4337 module, kind of how do you envision the integration of this capability impact Safe's user base and overall ecosystem growth? And I think there are some numbers being thrown around, right? Because Safe's implementation of ERC 4337 seems to have a higher retention rate compared to the market as well. So if you can
mm,
provide a bit of color into that as well.
mm. Sure. Like ERC 457 is like an Ethereum standard. It's not a change to the Ethereum protocol, but it's more like an application level standard that the ecosystem has been rallying behind that makes smart accounts first-class citizens on the Ethereum blockchain, or including L2s. And what it does is that it builds up this decentralized mempool where smart account transactions can be handled and be executed on Ethereum layer 1 or L2s. And this actually unlocks a few new features, which is like now having this decentralized mempool where like you can actually define who's actually paying for the gas of certain smart account transactions. You can achieve things where suddenly it's not the user paying their own transaction fees, but it might be their wallet, it might be an application they interact with, or it might be the user, but not in the same currency as the blockchain would accept. So not in ETH on layer 1, but in maybe stable coins or some other token. And that is a step towards what you were also saying in closing the gap to making Web3 feel more like Web2 solutions, where if you navigate to a website, you're not paying for the AWS fees that occur kind of generating the website interface, but it's actually the app provider that pays for that, and they probably have some way to recoup those costs, some way to monetize on the user, but like that's how Web2 works, and that's why it feels so frictionless. And we need to achieve a similar level of that for Web3 in order to get a lot of people onboarded on chain, because otherwise they're going to stick with centralized solutions, with the centralized exchanges that feel easy to use if we have too much friction. So that's the reason why ERC-457 and Safe supports that via like some adapter, so developers can work with that. And we've seen like many developers adopt that over the last months. When it comes to the retention, which you were touching on, that's an interesting one, as because of this like new feature set of 457, what the ecosystem has mainly taken advantage of is this being able to sponsor transaction fees for a user, which makes most applications of 457 like when you go to an application, you don't have a wallet, you just want to easily mint an NFT, and then NFT mint is sponsored by the app, and it's like this frictionless experience, but it's also this like low value experience usually, where like it's not about managing like hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of assets, which makes these accounts often have quite low retention, because it's quite easy to go through the flow, but then also it's not that much at stake to keep using those wallets. And Safe, counterintuitively, because it has a slightly higher gas cost than comparable solutions, actually makes it have a much higher retention, because it has this like little bit higher gas overhead, because Safe is very much maximizing on security. Obviously, if like $100 billion are at stake, you cannot compromise on security, and that's where we kind of make the design decisions on our solutions, and that's where if you're serious about your users, if you're serious about building like a long-term solution, production-ready solution that is like a long-term companion to the user, you want to not save on this little bit of gas in order to maybe compromise on security. So we see more the kind of mass market, the large scale products use Safe, which have battle tested or product market fit, and then also have a higher retention. So that's, I mean, one interpretation of this. I haven't looked for a while, like in the details of the data, like what apps are having what retention, but I would say this is a key driver of it.
That's a good point, because I know like a lot of the DAOs are using Safe, including crypto funds, right? It just feels like, of course, we all like gas fees to be cheaper, but also there's the priority over security, right? You would rather trust something that's well built. And also with the ERC 4337, you talk about gas abstraction, account recovery, all these extra capabilities. It's just like, all these little things removes user friction and improves user experience massively. So it's good news for all of us in crypto for sure. The next, I also want to touch on, we cannot not talk about AI, right? Because AI and crypto's intersection has been one of the most exciting areas, both for projects to build on and also for crypto VCs to invest into. Because I feel like every crypto VC I've known have put out the crypto and AI intersection, what other areas thesis to invest into. And interestingly, this is new knowledge to me recently, right? Like half of the Safe transaction on Gnosis chain are made by AI agents. So
Mhm.
can you kind of dive deeper into that? How was that enabled, right? What role did AI agents play, and how do you envision this to evolve over time?
Yeah. Um, yeah. It's definitely interesting to see how, if you think about AI agents, it's quite apparent that AI agents are not going to use like the traditional financial system, right? Like they're not going to have like a bank account where they have to go through KYC and then initiate like whatever fiat transactions overseas. Like AI agents, when they transact, when they interact with digital assets, they're going to do that on the blockchain. Like that's quite obvious. Like I'm happy if someone has some ideas about how this shouldn't be the case, but for me, this is obvious that it's going that direction. And then if you can assume that if you have AI agents control digital assets, obviously you don't want them to have full control. Like you don't want to just assign them like a private key which can do anything with their on-chain accounts, but you actually want to implement safeguards that restrict what the AI agent can do with those assets, so that you can impose like a mandate, or you can impose any type of restrictions or policies that the AI agents within that can act freely, but they cannot break out of that and just, I don't know, go rogue and take over kind of world dominance with a lot of assets. And for this, you need smart accounts. Like you need a way to program these safeguards on chain for the user account that the AI agent controls, and that's the reason where also Autonolas, which is driving a lot of that interaction that they were saying on Gnosis chain, why they chose Safe in order to have their AI agents act on chain, and they can go into many different directions of like, if I think how AI agents will look like in the future on chain, I actually think more than 90%, maybe more than 99% of on-chain interactions will come from AI. So users will make a small part of on-chain interactions, interestingly. And yeah, they will be involved in many things such as prediction markets. So AI agents with their own with their own data sets, having different types of information that is sourced through financial incentivization by having them participate in prediction markets and like bet on an outcome that they think have superior information on. They can interact with governance, as in like in governance, traditionally you delegate your vote to someone that represents you because you don't have the time to participate in all governance decisions. But you actually want, like, if you delegate to a person, humans are humans. They sometimes do not so good things. They're corrupt or whatever. Like you want to delegate to something that you can provably trust, like an AI agent which knows your preferences, how you would vote, and that you can then also much more easily control and kind of fine tune in their actions. So governance is a big part, but also when it comes to transaction security or even automations of your like asset management, like these are huge ones where like right now when we see self-custodial solutions, the user doesn't just have the control; they also have the responsibility to make sure that they don't make any mistakes or they get tricked into signing a wrong transaction or something like that. And AI can help there, kind of making better guardrails or warning users if something fishy is going on, but also if they have different DeFi positions, AI agents could at any time have like a triggering system which would automatically take assets out of compromised protocols or similar things. So that, in my view, like the three major applications for AI agents.
It's amazing. I think as you talk through the potential areas where AI agents combination with the smart contract can have an impact, I think the design space is just huge, right? And
Mm.
it's just mind-boggling, I think. And to know half of the safe transactions is already made by AI agents, it's also surreal because as we look through a lot of the investment thesis, I think a lot of it still remains in the kind of futuristic state, right? Rather than something that's actually working. So that's an amazing thing to say. I think the last question I have is around one of the major initiatives. I think previously, when I caught up with you in private, right, one of the things you guys are trying to do is also to bridge the gap with institutions or kind of work with the traditional institutions to bring mass adoption, right? So can you talk us through some of the efforts you guys are doing or progresses you guys have made in this category?
Yeah. This is mainly because we don't think that like pure self-custody will be something that like a billion people would sign up for. Like in theory, on ideal level, that would be nice, but in practice, it like my mom, dad, they trust certain institutions, they trust their bank, and they want to have also this kind of trust relationship there with certain entities. But I think it's important that this is still done in a way that there is a realistic path towards self-custody, as described as an exit door or similar, or that there's more hybrid solutions that give the benefits of self-custody, be it like flexibility, be it control, while still maintaining the security guarantees usually provided by trusted custodians. So we approach this in like different ways. One is through like a recovery hub, which is a way that you can have your safe wallet. So you have like your self-custodial wallet, and then you activate a trusted party as a guardian on your wallet, which you have your own private keys, and you can do with your assets whatever you want. And if you lose your private keys, you have this backup strategy where you can go knock the door of your whatever bank, or it could be another service provider, insurance, notary, something like that, and say, hey, I lost my keys, give me back access to the account. And this is what we call hybrid custody, because it combines the benefits of self-custody with the ones from custodial solutions. Now, thinking a bit further, I think what will be interesting is if people might have their assets on a custodial solution, like a centralized exchange or a neobank or something like that, but they still want to interact with decentralized applications. And this could be done also leveraging smart accounts, leveraging Safe, by saying your assets lay on the custodial solutions, and you have a wallet that's associated with your custodial account. And once you actually go with that wallet to an application and you want to interact with that, at this point you stream your assets into the wallet and just in time interact with the app, which then means that you only have to leave your kind of trusted custodial setup at the point where it actually becomes relevant. And this is something that's currently being researched in the ecosystem. There's different players also looking to enabling that, and that can bring a lot more users that so far were mostly off-chain in their safe haven custodial solutions on-chain with a better bridge.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think this fits into perfectly my mental model of how DeFi and CeFi are going to emerge together, right? So you have your DeFi rails, which is distributed ledger, permissionless, right? Mutable. And then on top of that, you have the CeFi layer, which is to customize to the local regulatory compliance, the local user habits, right? Your local language, and also adding that extra layer of trust and kind of user habits experience. So I think this seems to be one way to gain mass adoption, because I agree with you. I don't imagine my parents would one day be able to use the the self-custodial solution. I'll be really, really worried. So something I think in the middle, hybrid seems to be the way to go here. And thank you so much. I think we come to the end of the session, and we've covered definitely a lot of the key topics or questions in my mind. And yeah, I think it's going to be, and congratulations on the token launch earlier this year. I think putting 50% of the token into the hands of the community on day one has been one of the great launches of the cycle. So look forward to see the journey ahead for Safe and being part of that journey.
Thank you very much, Emma. It was a pleasure.